Are we? Good morning, everybody. Excellent. Right. So, my name is Doug Belshaw, and I don't look like this in real life. And that's one of the wonderful things about being able to present virtually. I can stride about on the stage wearing some kind of orange gown, looking like some kind of Jedi, whereas in real life, I'm just a middle-aged white guy. So, what I want to go through today is improving students' experiences of learning through alternative digital accreditation. And for some of you, you might recognize that Open Badges logo in the bottom right-hand corner. That's what I've spent the last 5 years of my life doing, both at Mozilla as an independent consultant and working in schools and higher education. Um, I've got my own company, Dynamic Skillset Limited, and we're part of a co-op, which I might talk about later. Okay, so go on to the next slide. I think I need to press this button. Here we go. I'm not going to read this out, but basically the point of this session is to find out where badges have come from, what's possible right now, where it might be heading, some examples of good practice, that kind of thing. The best way of thinking about this is basically a bluffer's guide to open badges. All of these images, all these wonderful images, have been created by someone who's in our co-op, which is called We Are Open, Brian Mathers, whose company is Visual Thinkery. And if you want him to do ones for you, he's definitely available, and I'll link to that at the end. All these slides are available online. So just a very brief timeline of badges, where they've come from. 2011, I was a researcher at JISC, just left working in schools. And Mozilla, who are best known for Firefox, they created this open technical standard. And the reason for that was they wanted learning to be captured anywhere and anywhere. You know, like at the moment, really most type of qualifications and assessments are created by big universities, exam bodies, that kind of thing. So they launched this competition with the MacArthur Foundation, and they launched version 1 of the specification in 2012. Since then, it's grown in popularity. The Badge Alliance was formed, and to cut a long story short, at the end of 2016, IMS Global, which is a global educational technology standards body, they took control of the Open Badges standard, which is going to ensure its longevity. So I just want to go into more details about that, but give you that backstory. We're 5 years into the Open Badges project, way of working, and I have always seen this as being a 10-year deal before badges go properly mainstream. There's lots of people using it now, but it'll be more mainstream kind of 2020, I would say. So the reason that me, as an educator, think that Open Badges is such a great way and a kind of a game changer is because we all have experiences that have value, but the difficulty is they can't be captured. So when you go to an interview, when you put a CV in, something like that, the difficulty is you can only put in things which there are boxes for, rather than trying to capture the whole experience. So I wanted a way in which I could capture the experience of the young people in front of me, for my own kids, and also for myself. I've been all the way through the educational system, but I'd like to think that I'm more than just my academic credentials and my job history. So the great thing about Open Badges is that it allows you to paint a much richer picture of who you are and what you can do. It's like going from just a broad brushstrokes of here's some GCSEs and A-levels and degree qualifications, professional qualifications, to here's me as a human being. Here's what I can do. I can talk to people in the real world and people on the internet at the same time. Where's my badge for that? That kind of stuff. I'm actually being filmed on Facebook Live, Periscope, and through Alice. This is a new experience for me. And YouTube Live. Thank you. So when I try to explain badges to people, as I've been doing for the last 5 years, I've been unreasonably excited about a metadata standard for all that time. People say, "Oh, so you mean like an online certificate?" And I, being the awkward person I am, say, "Well, no, it's more like a badge. Like a certificate is an offline badge." And the reason I say that is I've got lots of certificates, from 10 meters swimming all the way through to doctoral certificates. But those pieces of paper really don't have much information in. Whereas a badge has all this rich information in, and it's a bit like when you have a multimedia thing on your computer and you can print it out. That printout is nowhere near as rich as all that stuff that you've got online in a digital space. This particular one, I'm not sure if you can see on the right-hand side there, Brian, who I mentioned before, who's done all these wonderful images, he went on a walk up a mountain once and took this picture of an arrow helpfully pointing the direction through the fog. Now, the interesting thing about this isn't particularly the picture, but it's the metadata which is in the picture. So just to point out what this is like if you're on Facebook now and you're tagging somebody, you're adding metadata into that picture. This particular thing here, it tells you the size of the image on your disk. It tells you when it was taken. It tells you that this was taken on an iPhone 5. It tells you some kind of more geeky photography stuff like the f-stop and the exposure time. And also, because it was taken on a mobile phone, it tells you the latitude and longitude of where it was taken. So all that is in the image itself. Now, with a photograph, you can strip that out. You can take out that extra information if you want. You can strip out where it was taken. But with a badge, all of that is hard-coded into the badge. So the way that this works is there's a graphic that you see on the internet, but all of that metadata is hard-coded. You can't take it back out. It's unique to that individual. So there's some stuff which is you have to put in there, like the name of the badge, the description of what it is, the criteria of how you earn it, the image itself, who issued it, when it was issued, who received it. But then there's some optional stuff as well, like is it tagged for ease of finding? Does it align with any particular standards? Does it expire at any time, which might be useful for, I used to be a lifeguard, for that kind of stuff. And also, and this is the crucial one for me, this is the differentiating factor, the USP as it were, the evidence URL. So let's say, for example, I put on my CV, I can build walls. Well, that's a line on a piece of paper, but if this was in a badge, I could link to a YouTube video of me literally building the wall. And for me, that's a game changer. Not only can I say I can do something, claim I can do something on a CV, I can actually demonstrate it. I can give you the evidence that I'm able to do that thing. So there's several things which make open badges really, really valuable. The first, as we already talked about, is that they're evidence-based. So not only are you claiming something, you're demonstrating something. But also they're free and open. Anytime that you're talking about new technology in an educational institution, my first question is always, like, what's the end game for the people behind this particular product? And for open badges, it's a specification that anyone can align with. There's lots of different badge platforms, but you can move between them. They're transferable not only in terms of which platform you choose, you can build your own, but also in terms of the learner, they can choose to take their badges elsewhere. They can store them online, offline, wherever they want. They can even just stick them on their computer, Dropbox, or they can put them on their LinkedIn profile, wherever they want. And I've worked in every sector of formal education, and there's always been this view that you can stack lifelong learning credentials, but there's never been this underlying technical standard to allow you to do this. And Open Badges allows you to do that. It's entirely free and open source, and it's not proprietary. It's not the rug isn't going to be pulled from underneath your carpet at any point. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means that you can do professional development. So you're in a particular institution. You don't have to go to an awarding body. You can just create your own professional development and your badges for that, which are evidence-based. You can provide job opportunities. You can unlock new possibilities. You can do badges for online learning, as people are already doing. The world is your oyster. And you can put all these badges anywhere, online and offline, including social media profiles, wikis, websites, wherever you want. You can show what you know online. So the workflow works something like this. Anybody, including after-school classes, education providers, professional bodies, anybody can issue a badge for anything to a recipient who can choose to either accept or reject that badge. Now, you might, for example, issue me a badge for dodgy northern accent. Now, if you did that, I might accept that badge just for fun, or I might reject it. If I choose to accept it, it stays private until I choose to display it. And if I display it, I can display one at a time, I can display collections, whatever I want to do. And then the consumer, the inspector, the employer, whatever you want to call it, can then verify cryptographically that that badge was issued to me. All right, so it's a bit of a game changer when it comes to hiring. Now, you can do anything with badges, like I've said. Literally anyone can issue a badge for anything. So for fun stuff, for really serious stuff, anything you want. But we felt when we did some work with City and Guilds, we kind of baked it down to 4 guiding principles. You can do anything, but these ones seem to be intuitive. badges for participation, for turning up and doing something, badges for belonging to a membership organization, saying that you're affiliated with something in some regard. Capability, reaching a standard, so getting to a particular standard which is required by your institution, your professional body, whatever it is. But then mastery, not just I've reached this standard, but I've gone above and beyond, and I can actually show that I'm in the top 1% of people who are in this particular industry. Lots of different ways of doing badges. We're actually now almost at version 2.0 of the Open Badges specification. It's out for a review at the moment, which means you can do way more stuff. If you're interested in this, there's a website called openbadgespec.org, which you can go to find out more stuff on the technical side. But ever since version 1.1, you've been able to add extensions. Now, what that means, without going into too much technical detail, is that if you've got a particular way that you want to use badges in a new way, you can make an extension which is then useful for everyone else too. So I help create the Geolocation Extension, which means that you can make a badge which can be earned at a particular place. So I do, as you can see from my avatar, I do things like mountain leadership, that kind of thing. I can earn a badge on top of a mountain, or let's say there's a university that has a campus in different places overseas. You can see where that badge was earned, not just that that institution issued it. Those different things you can do. There's a whole list of extensions you can do to the main Open Badges standard. So this is, I mean, we're in education, we're better at the moment, but in terms of the kind of corporate world, you can show what you know. You can then you can extend that through professional development. You might be doing a leadership pathway, whatever it is. But interestingly, you can do badges for making teams. So instead of having people who have all the same skill sets, you can have this diverse skill set of people who complement one another. So you can use badges to really dig into how you can form teams very well. Now, badges by themselves are great. You know, getting a badge because you've attended BET or this session, or you've got a badge for being the most awesome whatever is great, but for me as an educator, it's badge pathways which are really the kind of the game changer. When we do formal education, usually it's almost like stepping stones across a river. I live in Morpeth in Northumberland, and there are stepping stones across the River Wansbeck, and sometimes they're flooded so you can't get over, which is a nice metaphor for learning when the course isn't available. Sometimes you might fall in the river, as my kids have done before, in which case you have to get back in soaking wet and start again. And it's almost like the educator's on one side of the river, beckoning the person over, and they've only got one way of doing it. Whereas another way you could do it is in a non-linear way, a bit like Trivial Pursuit, where you say, here's what you need to do, but you can do them in any way, and they can all be badges. But the really interesting thing, which I want to encourage people to get towards, is kind of constellations of badges. So when you look at the night sky, they're just all random data points of light. But we've identified some of them as being like the Big Dipper or the Great Bear. You can define pathways which you think are valuable, but also students might define pathways. They might actually choose their own way, and you might accredit that pathway through a badge as well. It's almost like, using a university example, it's almost like, here's a university prospectus of the badge pathways you can do. These are prescriptive. Versus, here's my autobiography. Here's the path I took, and then you badging that retrospectively. It allows you to be a lot more flexible around accreditation. So there was Kerry North, who works for O2, who's part of Telefonica. She said a really interesting thing when we were at an event recently. She said the really interesting thing about badges is that when they come to hire people, they're no longer just interviewing the extroverts. They're interviewing people who have done stuff like solved a Rubik's Cube in under a minute, shared a Raspberry Pi project online, created and published a web comic, got all these skills like coding, being resilient and curious and stuff. They're not just taking those people who are amazing at interviews and hiring those people. They're actually hiring people who can do the job. So open badges for me aren't here to replace what we've already got. They're here to augment what we've already got. So we've got these old school credentials. I've got these big, chunky academic credentials. Open badges are the small pebbles in the jar which work around that, saying, oh, you can get a badge for presenting at that conference. You can get a badge for showing resilience in that situation, confidence, whatever it is. They work alongside to make that much more holistic picture of the learner. This is just a very short snapshot of what badges can do. There's a whole community out there. Um, you might want to go, we've done some work with City and Guilds. We did some work which was funded by them, badges.thinkoutloudclub.com. Think Out Loud Club is a sub-brand of City and Guilds. We did some work around that. It's kind of a community course. There's also a badge newsletter which goes out every 2 weeks, which I create. That's just a badge.news. You might be interested in that too. So just to finish off then, my Twitter handle is @DAJBelshaw if you've got any questions. You can also email me, hello@dynamicskillset.com. And all of these images have been created by Brian Mathers, who's at visualthinkery.com and available under a Creative Commons license. The no derivatives one means that you can't just chop out the bit that you like and use that bit. You need to use the whole image. Have we got any more time? Okay. Just very finally then, before we ask any questions, here's some examples of some work we've done around badges, just by way of example. This is London Connected Learning Centre. They got some funding to work to do that last mile work with people who aren't online yet. So you can't deliver digital skills training to people who aren't online yet. That makes sense. So you have to literally do that in person. So to scale that, you can't do the usual Silicon Valley thing of like creating a big platform, getting lots of users. To scale that, you have to make mentors. So what they did was they created badges, and I created the framework for this. It was based on the work that I did at Mozilla around Web Literacy Map and also my doctoral thesis. And we created badges which were around digital protection and being a digital explorer. And all of these together made the digital mentor badge. And once you've got this digital mentor badge, the idea was that you've got the skills and the confidence to then be able to mentor other people around these particular digital skills. So this was a way of accrediting, empowering people to go out and do the kind of work which was necessary in that community. Another example, we kicked off this project. We're kind of advisors on it. Sussex Downs College, they decided that they wanted to work much more closely with the employers in their community around their students being work ready, having these employability skills. So they didn't just create a framework and they go, off you go. They invited the employers in, and they found out, for example, that they had hotels where their students were not showing any resiliency. Like at the first, they missed the bus and they'd not show up for work. So they wanted to make sure that they were getting the type of students who were resilient, who could work well in a team, who could communicate well. So these badges here level up. If you get these four, you get this one, this communication badge. And if you get all four of these kind of badges, you get this meta-level employability passport badge. And they're going to continually tweak that as they find that employers have different different requirements and different skills are needed in the labour market. So badges are a way in which you can be much more responsive to your local context. If you're interested in doing this, what most people do, especially to start off with, is they use an off-the-peg badging system. So they go to a badge platform and they sign up and they issue some badges. But that's not the only way you can do things. You can also build your own from scratch. If you've got the in-house talent, you can hook into the Open Badges standard and make it entirely bespoke to your network. But what a lot of people are doing, actually, is using an open source platform like WordPress or Moodle actually has badges built in. And they're using a modular system of having content management system, learning platform, whatever, and bringing badges in as a module. So there's lots of different ways in which you can make badges work in your particular context. So if you are interested in this, I would encourage you to sign up to have a look at this course, badges.thinkoutloudclub.com. I'd encourage you to get in touch with us. We are Open Co-op, myself, Doug Belshaw. But also have a look at Badge News. Badge.news is a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks and allows you to keep up with what's going on in the community and how people are using badges all across the world to capture learning wherever and whenever it happens. So I'm going to pause there just in case there's any questions. There might be questions on Twitter that I might have a quick look at. I can prompt for questions by pressing this button. Yep. Oh, this is good. So if anyone wants to ask a question, they can get the mic, ask a question, and then I'll answer it. Excellent. I'm also going to look on Twitter to see if anyone's asked a question there. I'm not on Facebook because I value my privacy. There we go. Oh, Richard, there we go. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Doug. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. This is a new experience for me.
Are you actually on the stand there?
Yes, I'm literally on the stand, yeah.
Okay. My question is about your comment about badges as allowing or providing a narrative for learning. What effect do you think that'll have on the way we think about accreditation at the moment as kind of summative at an
Hmm.
endpoint? Thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, good question. So, um, with a whole separate conversation about the kind of the summative formative binary, but I think that what badges allow you to do is because you're capturing learning as it happens, and you can give badges for any level of granularity from, hey, you turned up today, all the way through to, as I said before, like PhD level stuff. What it allows you to do is to capture what's valuable in that particular moment in a formative way, so you can be encouraging people. Now, there are some people who decide to use badges almost like stickers, like my kids get a house point or whatever it is, and I think, and that's fine, and that works in some contexts. What I think badges are really useful for is being able to display learning outside of the particular environment in which that learning happened. So in the same way that we use awards in a particular sector to say, this sector is important, look at this person has been recognized in this particular sector for this thing. In the same way, we want to kind of break down the walls of the classroom and say, look, this person's done this thing, and I want to demonstrate that with evidence outside the classroom. So like you said, it's not just useful for summative assessment and summative credentialing, but it's actually useful as you go along, that breadcrumb trail, that Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb trail, all the way along. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions there? I love the way you can see how people have chosen to represent themselves. I am actually wondering whether people really look like that, or like me, they've just decided to be some random figure. Anyone want to grab the mic? Richard's saying he's in his PJs. That's a lovely thought. Thank you, Richard. All right, well, I recognise this might be, it's certainly my first experience of this system, so I am going to leave it there unless anyone's got any more questions. Has anyone got questions on Facebook or Periscope or Twitter? Or have I bamboozled everybody? Yes? Okay. That could work. So, this one? Yep. I'm now going to take you to the gallery, which is very exciting.